Russell Williams was a high-profile member of his community, a lifelong military man who excelled within the armed forces, but behind that facade, he was, and indeed still is, a narcissistic psychopath. He thought he was better than everyone else, but he committed a string of depraved crimes, believing he would never be caught. But he didn't count on two things. First, low cards principle, meaning that an offender will always leave something of themselves at the crime scene. Secondly, the persistence and excellence and interrogation mastery of Ontario Police Sergeant Jim Smith. This is Murder of Crows. David Russell Williams was born in Bromsgrove, Worcestershire, England, on March the 7th, 1963. As a proud Brit, I don't want him. I don't want to stake any sort of claim to him. But when he was still a baby, his parents emigrated to Canada. His mother Christine and his father Cedric David moved to Chalk River, Ontario, where his father was a metallurgist in a nearby nuclear research lab. When Williams was 6, his parents divorced, and Christine soon remarried to Dr. Jerry Sovka, and for a time Williams actually took the Sovka surname. Staying with his mother, the family moved to Scarborough, Ontario, where Williams started high school at Birchmount Collegiate. Family needed to relocate to South Korea when he was 16, but rather than disrupt his schooling entirely, he completed the final 2 years of high school at Upper Canada College boarding school. Sounds posh. He then went on to study economics and politics at University of Toronto, Scarborough, where it seems he was a bit of a prankster. But not normal sort of pranks like tying shoelaces together or fake letters from the venereal disease clinic. No, Williams would pick the locks of the rooms of his friends and then wait inside, sometimes for hours, until they returned, to scare them. Ho, bloody ho. Funny, funny man. But these rather sinister pranks would be a strong portent of what was to come in the years that followed. After university, he embarked on a military career of some repute, where he excelled as both a pilot and a leader of men, as he steadily progressed up the ranks, achieving loftier pilot in 1990, and after 2 years as an instructor, he was promoted to captain. In 1994, he was posted to Ottawa, where he would fly for Canadian and visiting dignitaries, including the Canadian Prime Minister, as well as the Queen and Prince Philip during an official visit. In 2004, He became a lieutenant colonel and then a full colonel in 2009. On being promoted to full colonel in 2009, he became wing commander for Trenton Base, which was a prestigious posting since it's the arrival point for any Canadians killed in the line of duty abroad, and formed start of their funeral processions along the so-called Highway of Heroes. He was held in very high regard within and beyond the military, which naturally fed his narcissistic personality to the point where he felt untouchable. In 1991, he had married Mary Harriman, and after his posting to Trenton in 2009, the couple would use two homes. A townhouse in Ottawa, where his wife would live the majority of the time, and Williams would live at weekends, but then also go to stay there if he had meetings in the city. But what his wife did not realise is that Williams had been breaking into homes and stealing lingerie since at least 2006. Those of us that are fans of true crime will realise that these kind of fetish break-ins are often regarded as something of a gateway crime to more serious sexual assault. So unless stopped early, the perpetrator could and probably would progress onto more serious crimes, which is exactly what Williams did. So let's look at the escalation of our untouchable hero, because make no mistake about it, that's definitely how Williams saw himself. He was breaking into houses and stealing underwear. That's how it started, although, if you ask me, I imagine that he would have been something of a peeping Tom and a voyeur leading up to that. But not only stealing underwear, he progressed on to wearing that underwear and photographing himself wearing it. Lovely. As he became more brazen, he would not only photograph himself, but also masturbate on the beds of his victims. He was also showing some paedophilic tendencies as he stole underwear from girls as young as 9 years old. So untouchable did he think he was, he even left a note saying merci on the computer of a 12-year-old girl whose knickers he was pilfering. It's clear to see that even in a string of similar crimes, he is becoming more and more drawn to the victims themselves. But he escalates further, and this titillation is no longer enough for him. He wanted to be directly interacting with his victims. So he progressed to sexual assault without penetration, until he ended up going right up to the R word and murder. But the silly bugger kept notes and photographs of all of his crimes. Yep, that's right, genius that he was. He would keep notes of everything. But he must have been pretty proficient, since after his arrest, he was charged with 82 fetish-related break-ins, among the more serious charges that we're going to come on to. In November 2009, A 37-year-old military flight attendant named Marie-France Comeau was found dead in her home. She was based at Trenton, where one imagines that she would have come to William's attention in some way or another. But she was found by her boyfriend after she failed to show up for dinner. You can only imagine how traumatized he must have been after going to her home, knocking, getting no answer, deciding to go round the back where Williams had left the back patio doors open, and entering the property only to find her lifeless. Williams, being so arrogant, kept detailed records of his crimes, and after the fact, in the investigation that follows, it transpires that Comeau was raped several times before being suffocated. It comes as a surprise to absolutely no one that he also took her underwear before heading to his Ottawa townhouse, where he had an early meeting the next day, and helpfully would also take him out of the immediate area near Trenton. At the time of his crime, Williams was not even on the radar. As I said, he was a pillar of the community and, one of the high-profile members of his community in Tweed, where everyone knew him as the boss of the big military base. So he was seemingly above reproach, but his final, equally heinous crime was to be his downfall, as he got complacent, and as I said, this is where he forgets about Locard's principle, where things always transfer from a person to a place where a crime is committed. Now, normally, these are so microscopic that they tend not to be found, and for someone who is at least moderately forensically aware, as Williams was, the crime scenes themselves were remarkably clean. But what Williams forgot about was the immediate vicinity of the crime scene, and this is what we will cover when we look at this final crime. He forgot about what may have been left behind at or near the crime scene. Jessica Lloyd was 27 years old, and when she didn't show up for work on the 28th of January 2010, she was reported missing. The last contact with her was reported as being a text message late in the evening of the 27th. But no one heard from her again after that. It seems that Williams, who lived nearby, had seen Lloyd on her treadmill on the evening of the 27th of January, and for whatever reason decided to act. So he returned home and decided to drive down to her home, where he broke in, and rather than just stealing underwear, he decided to take Jessica back to his home and do all manner of unspeakable things to her. But in doing these actions, he unwittingly left tyre tracks and boot prints in the mud outside of Jessica's property. As these tyre tracks were the only major lead of note that the Ontario Provincial Police had, they decided to get proactive in terms of trying to track down the tyres that had made those tracks. So on the 4th of February, in the evening, running through to the next morning, the police decided to canvass all motorists that were passing Jessica's home, the crime scene. And one particular sharp-witted officer noticed a similarity between a now pulled over Williams tyres and the tracks that had been left at the scene. So Williams was now well and truly on the radar. So with the further scrutiny on him, they decided to focus in a bit more on him. And 3 days later, they decided they were ready to progress things and see what, if anything, Williams knew and was prepared to divulge. So they called him where he was now staying at the Ottawa townhouse, and he was invited to come and talk to a detective. Now this is where the real hero of the story enters the fray. Staff Sergeant Jim Smith of the Ontario Provincial Police delivers what I can only describe as a masterclass of the Reid technique. I've got links to the full interrogation below, as well as the analyses of this remarkable interrogation that was done by the behaviour panel, and they'll be linked in the description box below.
You just have a seat there, Russ.
The guy I was speaking with, whatever night that was Russ as well.
Oh, yeah.
And we took every number I had.
Yeah, no, they were doing some pretty thorough interviews that night. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I was
Right.
glad to see it.
I'm just going to move your gloves here. That's a little microphone, just to make sure there's nice and clear. As you can see here, everything in this room is videotaped and audio taped.
Check.
You ever been interviewed by the police in a room like this before?
I
Or?
have never been interviewed like this.
Oh, no? Okay.
No.
Let's get this set up here.
I guess the closest interview by NIS for top secret clearance.
Oh, yeah? All right. Well, again, Russell, I appreciate you coming in. An investigation like this, I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate it's been big news, especially down Belleville way. And, you know, obviously our approach to cases like this is that we don't give up on somebody being alive until we get evidence that they're not. So because of that, we're treating Jessica's case as an emergent situation, obviously.
Yeah.
So we're fast forwarding things that we might normally take our time with. And that's why we're here on a Sunday afternoon.
Sure.
So again, I appreciate it.
No
We're going to do a pretty thorough interview today. Okay. And the reason for that is because the last thing we want is to be calling people back again and again and again. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a number of things, and I'm going to explain what all those are to you. Okay. I'm a big coffee guy. I don't know if you're a coffee guy or not, but I didn't want to drink in front of you. So
No, I appreciate that.
all right, go ahead.
I could definitely. Are they black?
Yeah, they're just black with sugar.
Definitely. I just started my phone. I probably haven't a little bit.
Started your what, sorry?
Gum. Just
Oh,
first
okay.
piece of gum.
Well, there's napkins there if you want to toss it or whatever.
I appreciate that.
All right, and again, like I said, this interview is going to be very thorough. But again, I have a simple rule when I talk to people. It's I'm sure you're the same way. I treat everybody with respect. I I ask that they do the same for me. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by going through what your rights are, okay? Just like everybody else, okay? Have you ever been read your rights before?
No.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it on TV a whole bunch of times, but that's usually the American version, so I'll go over with you briefly, okay? Basically in Canada, as you know, I'm sure, is we all have our rights guaranteed under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, okay? Now, Russell, just to avoid any confusion, because people do get confused when they're talked to by the police, is that you're obviously not under arrest here today, okay? Anytime you feel you want to leave here, you feel free to do so. The door's not locked. Teresa will walk you down the lobby anytime you want, okay? If there's anything that comes up in our interview today, Russell, that you feel you want to talk to a lawyer about, you just let me know, okay? And the reason for that is I want to explain to you exactly what's going on here, okay? Jessica Lloyd is one of 4 cases that we're currently investigating, okay? And essentially what's happened is over the past about 4 or 5 months, there have been 4 occurrences that, like I said, that we're looking into. 2 of those occurrences occurred in September of 2009, and very briefly, they were up in the Tweed area. They involved somebody entering 2 different women's houses in the evening hours and committing sexual acts. Okay, in November of 2009, a young lady by the name of Marie-France Como,
my people.
was found murdered in her home in Brighton. And we believe that there was a sexual component to that crime as well. And then most recently we have Jessica Lloyd's disappearance. Okay, so essentially when you're looking at those kind of crimes, we're looking at a number of different potential criminal charges. Right? We're looking at issues all the way from the most serious one, which is first-degree murder, kidnapping, sexual assault, break and enter with intent to commit sexual assault, forcible confinement. Okay, and so what I want to make sure you understand, and this is what we've been doing with everybody we've been talking to, is that clearly when we find out who's responsible for one or all of those crimes, they could be charged with one or all of those offenses. Okay, whether it's you or whether it's anybody else. Right. And that's why it's important that we make sure that people understand what they have to do and what they don't have to do when they're talking to us. Okay? So as I said before, any point today you feel the need, you want to speak to a lawyer, you let me know, and we can take you to a room where you can do that in private. Okay? Do you have your own lawyer?
I have a realty lawyer, but I don't have a lawyer.
All right. If at any point you want to make that call and you don't know who to call, we have a phone list of lawyers that are available to give you advice free of charge right over the phone. Okay. So again, if at any point today you want to take advantage of that, you just let me know. Is there any reason you want to call a lawyer now?
Nope.
Okay. A couple other fairly simple and straightforward things that you probably understand, but again, we go over them to make sure everybody's clear, is that you don't have to speak to me today, okay? And the reason for that is because the law considers me to be what we refer to as a person in authority, okay? Probably similar to what you may be considered to be on the base. And because of that, I can be compelled to appear before any judge in the country, basically, to account for what takes place here today between you and I, okay? And that's the reason why everything's recorded, because there can't be any more accurate record than that, right? So,
no, understood.
And right, the tires that you have on your truck, right? The reason I asked you about that is there any time? I mean, you recall where you were stopped by the officers there?
Yes.
Okay. Did they explain to you what the significance of
that was her house?
That was her house, okay. So you remember that location?
Yep.
Do you remember what the crossroad was, or?
I don't think there was a crossroad. It's sort of just on the south end of 37.
Okay. When you get stopped at that location, has there been a time in the recent 1 or 2 weeks that your vehicle has left that road for any reason whatsoever? Have you driven into a field with your vehicle at all? For any reason you can think of?
No.
Okay. Because I want you to rack your brain here. This is important. So, is there anything you can remember doing that would have caused you to drive off the road at that section of roadway?
No, that's my early. That's the early part of the highway, and just head north. It's about 30 minutes from there to, probably 20 from there to my house.
Okay. Would it surprise you to know that when the CSI officers were looking around her property, that they identified a set of tire tracks to the north of her property? Looks as if the vehicle left the road and drove along the north tree line of Jessica Lloyd's property. Okay. They took, they examined those tire tracks. And they have contacts in the tire business. Obviously, tire tracks are a major source of evidence for us.
Sure.
Shortly after this investigation started, they identified those tires as the same tires on your Pathfinder.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. One of the other things that they do to try and identify the type of vehicle that may have left those tires, well, is they do two things. They talk to witnesses. Okay. There was a female police officer that actually drove by that location that evening and recalls seeing an SUV type vehicle in the field to the north of Jessica Lloyd's house, consistent with a Pathfinder. Okay. Can maybe consistent with other things, but consistent with a Pathfinder. And they, what they also do to try and identify the type of the vehicle is they look at what they call the wheelbase width, okay? Because different vehicles, different makes, models have wheelbase width. So they can take those two sets of tire tracks, measure the distance between them, okay, and determine what the width is.
Sure.
And then they can enter that into a vehicle database, and it will spit out the types of vehicles, okay? Your Pathfinder's wheelbase width is very, very close to the width of the tires that were left in that field, okay? Do you have any recollection at all of being off that road?
No, it was not off the road, no.
Okay. All right. Russell, is there anything you can think of? Let's go talk about Marie France Como for a minute, okay? Is there any reason at all you can think of that during our investigation, obviously we're searching computers, things like Blackberries, right? Electronic devices, looking through houses for things that are in handwriting, written notes, diaries, things like that. Now, I'm not at liberty to tell you what the content was, but is there any reason at all you can think of why Marie France Como would have specifically referenced you in some of her writings?
Not at all.
No?
No, absolutely not.
Okay. Is there anything that she ever said to you that led you to believe that there might be something more than a passing interest with her towards you?
Not at all. No, we spent, one flight together talking. I'd go back occasionally and talk. No, if that's the case, that's very surprising.
Okay. All right. You have any questions for me right now?
No.
Okay. I'm just going to step out and see how things are going, okay? I mean, it is a Sunday, but there's probably 60, 70 people working on this file, so there's a lot of things happening. The problem is, Russell, is every time I walk out of this room, But the problem is, Russell, is every time I walk out of this room, there's another issue that comes up, okay? And it's not issues that point away from you, it's issues that point at you, okay? And I want you to see what I mean, all right? This is the footwear impression of the person who approached the rear of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January. Okay? All right? Now, I want you to keep in mind that this is slightly smaller, okay, in scale. Okay?
Okay.
All right? That's not to scale. The footwear is actually bigger.
Okay.
If you look here on the ruler, you'll see that 1 inch is just slightly smaller than an actual inch. Okay? But this is the way it prints off on the computer.
Yeah.
I'm going to move this over so you can see what I mean, all right? Because essentially when you're dealing with footwear impressions, we have a gentleman on the OPP who's basically world-renowned. His name is John Norman. And essentially with footwear impressions, you're in a situation where you're pretty much in the area of fingerprints, okay? And essentially what we're talking about here is, especially when you start adding in other pieces of information that support an investigative position. Okay. This is a photocopy of the boot that you took off your foot
Yeah.
just a little while ago, okay? Now, I'm not an expert on footwear impressions, so I rely on the experts. Footwear impressions are very much like fingerprint comparisons, okay? You take a look at this print, and again, this is one print. This person walked through, there's several different prints to compare, so we're going to get features off of one print to compare, features off another print to compare.
Yeah.
These are identical. Okay. Your vehicle drove up the side of Jessica Lloyd's house. Your boots walked to the back of Jessica Lloyd's house on the evening of the 28th and 29th of January. Okay, you want discretion. We need to have some honesty, okay? Because this is getting out of control really fast, Russell. Okay, really, really fast. I really have. I don't know what else to do to make you understand the impact of what's happening here. Did we talk?
I want to minimize the impact on my wife.
So do I.
So how do we do that?
Well, we start by telling the truth.
Okay.
Okay. So where is she?
Get a map.
Is she close to where she lives? I've got maps of that general area. Which town is she near? Why don't we start there?
I'm not sure if you give me a map of that covers Calabar down to the highway and over to Tweed and south, I'll show you.
Let me see what I got here. I might have something. Is she inside, outside?
As you can see, Williams finally confesses and asks for a map where he shows the location of Jessica Lloyd's body. The legal proceedings that followed were something of a formality, thanks mainly to the fact that Williams pled guilty to all charges. And in addition to the 82 pervy home invasions I mentioned earlier, Williams was charged with breaking and entering, forcible confinement, and the sexual assault of 2 other women in connection with 2 separate other home invasions, as well as the murders of Cuomo and Lloyd. He was ultimately sentenced to 2 concurrent life sentences with no chance of parole for 25 years. Now, this pisses me off, I've got to be honest. I don't understand the use of concurrent sentences, and concurrent means that the different sentences are all served at the same time. So in essence, you're serving one sentence for more than one crime. And I don't understand why they do this, particularly for more serious crimes, where I believe somebody should pay the price for each serious crime separately. But, that's just my opinion. I mean, it's unlikely that he'll ever receive parole, given the nature of his crimes. But I imagine the punishment that probably hurt him the most, beyond his incarceration, was the fact that when the army received his uniform back, they burnt it. And they also cut all of his medals into pieces, and obviously he was stripped of his rank. Thanks to the meticulous work of Jim Smith and William's own arrogance, there was a full confession, along with photos, videos, and meticulous notes of all the crimes, as well as a collection of ladies' underwear that was all catalogued and stored. While the police could not stop William's escalation to eventual rape and murder, they undoubtedly stopped many, many more women becoming victims. As Williams would never stop unless he was killed or incarcerated. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of criticism levelled at the police in terms of why didn't they catch him sooner, if they had done this, if they had done that. Well, if my auntie had balls, she'd be my uncle. If is just that, it's if. Whereas, when you look at the facts, the police investigation was very well done, and when they had a lead, they proactively pursued it. And thanks to Jim Smith, there was a full confession at the end of that investigation. So, whatever your criticisms of the police, the work that they did do was paramount in preventing what could have been many, many more women being seriously hurt or killed, as Williams would not have stopped. I mean, this will come as very little comfort to the many victims of Williams, particularly the friends and families of Marie-France Comeau and of Jessica Lloyd, who continue to mourn the voids left in their lives that William created through his deplorable selfish actions. So I dedicate this video to all of the victims. Thank you for watching another episode of Murder of Crows. By all means, subscribe if you'd like to become a part of the growing Crow cult. Smash the like button on your way out. As I said, I'm planning to upload at least one new video a week. And with that said, I'm Steve, and I'll see you when I see you.